Here's what I want you to try, Travis. Turn the music off and sit in it. Just as you say, keep your eyes open and be in it. And it's like, that relates to so many things we do in our lives, right? People are working out at the gym. This one drives me nuts. Pet peeve alert here, but sitting there on their phones when your benefits there are so minimized when you're not actually present to what you're doing versus thinking about what muscles you're working and you're moving. That goes to eating food.
Hey, I'm Joe Fier, and welcome to the Hustle and Flow Chart podcast. This is where we talk all about building businesses so they give you the freedom and fuel for your life. I'm not here to help you build a billion-dollar business, but I am here to help you create a business with systems that work for you so you can make more money than you need just by working part-time. I was a chronic hustle mode kind of guy, and I want to share my experiences and mentors I've met along the way to help you reframe things to be the most effective as an entrepreneur. I wish I had this guidance and insight when I was younger, so that's what I'm doing here for you. So please share and enjoy. Yo, today on the episode, I have my buddy Mike Prince on the podcast. He is actually business partners with my other friend who you probably heard on the podcast recently named Trevor Turnbull. These guys are putting together some really amazing people. There's also a retreat in Costa Rica in late April. You're invited to it as well. There's still a handful of spots. So go check it out at extremelyconscious.com/retreat to get all the details there. And the reason why I brought Mike on is partially because he's been leading this group, and I'm in this group with 10 other men or so, doing a bunch of daily actions, these micro things that are really shifting a bunch inside of me. I just recorded a solo episode that you might have listened to as well about that. And Mike here, he's been a pioneer in flyboarding, which is an extreme sport. It's something that you probably have seen over a body of water somewhere near you. Well, he's going to describe what he did in that space. He built a whole franchise business in that space. He also now manages a bunch of sales folks, runs a whole team there, and he's building his Extremely Conscious brand. So check that out at extremelyconscious.com. And if you want to get to the retreat, all the details there, extremelyconscious.com/experience gets you there. And in this episode, Mike's going to break down this journey from extreme sports to debilitating disease to where he's at now and all the different tools like meditation, breath work, and cold exposure and some other things. So you're going to love this episode if you're into this. So have an open mind and check out this episode. And towards the end, we're going to do a little breathwork session as well. So it's going to get fun. All right. Enjoy the episode. See you there. All right, Mike, we're here. We're rolling. I had your partner on here not that long ago, Trevor Turnbull. So it's great to have you here, man.
Thank you. It's great to be here. I've really been looking forward to this.
Yeah, I know. When we've been chatting about it. And I mean, I guess just to put some context to this conversation and those listening, Mike Prince, I mean, you and Trevor Turnbull have put this awesome group together under the brand of Extremely Conscious. And
yes,
there's a group of, I don't know how many of us there are, 15-ish, or maybe it's a little less.
Yeah, there's just over 10 of us. Mm-hmm. And amazing group of humans, group of men that are doing the work in terms of looking to have it all in life and how we do that. And yeah, that's how Trev and I originally met each other, really.
Well, yeah, you were neighbors, and then you decided, hey, there's something that we're all noticing in ourselves as men. And, I've chatted a lot about that on this podcast, not always focusing just on men, but just in almost like a lot of folks who are listening are around our age range. It's kind of like there's a lot of shifts happening in our life and a lot of realizations of ourselves and obviously responsibilities, business, that whole balance of everything. So yeah, you guys are basically bringing men together to do some really, it's kind of seemingly simple stuff, but it's also completely changing everything.
Totally. It's been amazing to see and to think about, as you say, like it is, there's not, we haven't come up with a formula that is revolutionary or anything, but what we've looked at is the foundational pieces of in our journeys individually. And then when we came together of, what was really helping us amplify in our daily lives and bring us more energy and, helping us sleep better and really just feel calm, cool, and collected as we go through the chaos of our lives of both having 2 kids under 6 and, having multiple businesses and then exploring this whole new world where we want to create some amazing things in.
Yeah, man.
And introducing it to other guys. and
it's foreign, to a lot of men, a lot of people in general. It's just everyone. It's these simple actions, which we'll get into, and we chatted about a bit in the episode I did with Trevor, the micro actions. Yeah. And probably by the time this goes out, I'll have a solo episode out where it kind of like dove deep into my own actions and realizations through things. And so if you guys listening, curious, that's what we're really pertaining to here and talking about.
Hey, I want to pause this and give a quick thanks to my friend Greg Marilees and his team at Studio One Design. They're the ones that built my website over at hustleandflowchart.com. I couldn't be happier. They nailed it. It looks so professional. They basically read my mind on the vision and they executed it beautifully. I now have a perfect offer to display. It looks super clean. I've already been getting a lot of people asking all about it, and I've been referring everybody to Studio One. So they actually put together a quiz for you if you're looking to optimize your current website or build a new one. It has a full quiz that gives you a ton of results on how to improve and optimize what you're doing. So go complete that quiz at studioOneDesign.com/Joe. That is studio, the number one design.com/Joe. It'll give you a free report after you finish that quiz. He's also giving away some cool bonuses. So go check it out at studioOneDesign.com/Joe.
Mike, I want to go back and talk about you and like what you're made of, because I'm going to learn a lot as well. And then everything here that we could share, and then we'll kind of get into what we're doing right now as well.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly where to start, but like because I know you're doing stuff in sales, you're crushing it there. You have a big old team, but like you've done professional sports as well. So extreme stuff.
Yeah. It's funny. Those worlds actually intertwine, believe it or not, because my corporate job is in sales and I'm now in a management role. But let's go back 10 years. I was in a sales role and it's payment processing. And so I was helping somebody set up their website. And, he was setting up for this sport called flyboarding, which I'd never seen before. Mm-hmm. And so I simply said, we'll take care of this piece, but let's meet up for a coffee. I want to learn more about this. And cross that kind of professional boundary a little bit, but was so intrigued I couldn't help it. And honestly, that spawned a part of my journey, a part of my life that was incredible. I did sales at First Forum, but then I flew to the first ever competition in Qatar in the Middle East. And I saw what was happening there. And it was a spark. And I said, I have to get involved in this piece. And took out a $12,000 loan and traveled the US a little bit to check out other people's locations, but then I started my own location here, which exists till today. We're going into our 9th or 10th of teaching people how to flyboard. And I started that to fund so I could go across the world and compete and do shows. And, definitely came across some very interesting times where I get a phone call. And I remember one, they're like, can you leave for a show in 2 days? We need you to fly to Turkmenistan. It's the president's birthday. And at the time I was just like, of course, I'll get on a plane. Like, let's go, let's do this. And it was one of the most interesting trips to this day in my life that, wow. They flew us first class. We had people waiting at the airport to pick us up. We had a house on this. It was just this imaginary world almost that was wild. And then they sent us back economy after they paid us.
Did they really?
Oh yeah. That was the joke. Yeah. They wanted us well rested, get there, treated us so well. And then like, hey, see you later.
Well, you did your part. Well, flyboarding, I mean, that's just, so I've seen it. I've seen people in San Diego and the Bay do it. Yes. And in Cancun. And I remember seeing some people do it. And how would you describe it? I'm looking at a picture of it, but I don't.
Yeah. Sorry. Great question. Because many people have tried it now, but a lot of people aren't even familiar. So it is the one where you have the jets attached to your feet by wakeboard boots, essentially. And then it's by an 80-foot hose, it's attached to a high-pressure Sea-Doo. So all of that pressure that normally fires a Sea-Doo across the water is now at your feet. And you're kind of essentially like a rocket man. So in competitions, we just took it to acrobats, essentially, by leveraging that power, and then massive dives and back dives and anything we could do to get creative with it. We were, there was no rule book or guidebook, trick book when we started it. So it was literally sharing videos on the internet and people looking at it being like, whoa, so-and-so in Thailand did this. And this guy in San Diego did this. And we would try to recreate, we'd meet at competitions and see who had learned those tricks.
Ah, okay. That's
You
interesting. It's
wanna
like almost like skateboarding when it was just beginning. It's like
totally
no one had names for tricks and everybody was looking. I mean,
no.
no internet then either. So different times.
Yeah, yeah, it was the point where we had to submit trick cards for qualification rounds, and we would have to explain what it was to the judge because it was new.
This is how you rate me on my tricks.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like, so so you made a business out of it and you traveled everywhere. So, and you're 9 years in now. I mean, this is interesting. And I had no clue, man. So I guess where'd you go with it? Like, cause you took it professionally, obviously you're getting paid and traveling everywhere.
Yeah, it was amazing. We had sponsors at the time. I helped co-found the first Canadian team called Team Can Fly with a partner of mine, Brody, in Alberta. And we had a group of, 7 or 8 of us. And then we started to bring in some Americans as well. And even though it was an individual sport, it was kind of like we started to create this social media buzz and this to try to get sponsors and be able to afford to go out all these competitions. And it was amazing. And so my last competition was now 5 years ago. It was 2018 in Australia. Wow. And that's for the bulk of us, actually. It just kind of fizzled out. Competitions slowed down. Now there's a lot of guys still doing shows, some really cool stuff. But business wise, it's not an easy business because, as you can see, we still have to explain it to people to these days. Mm-hmm. So we had at one point a franchise model. We had 8 locations across BC, Manitoba, and Alberta. Wow. And now there's one, mine. It came and went within a few years, to be honest.
Pandemic didn't help, I'm sure, with getting out and doing stuff.
Yeah, that was a tough time for sure. It was actually pre that. It was more guys thought it was cool. It was a lot of dudes jumping in with some extra money saying, oh, I want to do this business. If I buy this stuff, they will come. It's not like, no you still got to market. You still got to open a Google page.
Know what you're doing. Actually take it seriously.
Yeah. So it was an amazing chapter, but it's interesting it taught me a ton for sure. So much to reflect on, but it's certainly a time that now I see as well was honestly, I was living a very ego driven life.
How so?
Well, it was one of the coolest things happening, right? When everybody hears about it, it was just this hype and made you feel so good. And, you had all the feels because you were doing something really cool and getting to travel. And so there was a lot of that. And there was a deep brotherhood, which was real and amazing. And there was injuries behind it all. It was just kind of like hype on social media. And it wasn't really what was going on with all of us, right? Sure, there was some real pains and stuff and real conversations. You can never take away from all that. But yeah, it just pushed me in a different direction of trying to become, personas we put on, right? Yeah. Which is the social media persona. But then I wasn't really exploring who I really was or relationships deeper in my life at that time. It was more so just driving to be this cool person, which a lot of us easily get attached to when we get that opportunity.
And you're surrounded by those people too. So it kind of compounds, I guess.
Totally. There's no regrets in the journey at all. It was incredible, but it just at a different chapter in my life now where I love having families come to our location, and I don't run it anymore. But when I go down and spend a day or two there over the summer, it's amazing to see that families can learn with kids and the parents and have fun. That part's still beautiful. But do I need to go to the biggest stage I can find and try to put on a show because it's cool? No, not really.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, there's still a piece of my heart that fires me up about that for sure. The adrenaline, the presence as well. I look at it differently now of when I was 80 feet up on, there's nothing else in the world I'm thinking of at that moment. So there was a beauty in it as well that really brought presence to my life for sure, because you had to be in flow. When you're doing a trick set or something, you had to be. But
when you're doing that too, like if you're 80 feet up, and because it makes a lot of sense, like with what you're saying, it's flow with like anything. I mean, any kind of sport that really gets you in there. It could even be music, like playing a guitar. It's like you break some of that flow, or if you're shooting a gun, rifle, archery, whatever. It's like you need that focus. And I'm sure there's principles you were going by. Like
totally. There's different elements, right? We had a remote as well. So we had no driver on the Sea-Doo. So you have to be in sync with a few elements of your remote. That's, basically the throttle of the Sea-Doo. And then there's component called hose management, which is like you've got 80 feet of hose. If you loop it the wrong way, you can, oh man, there was some bad incidents where people's femurs got snapped, and then
like that hose wrapping around, and
yeah, that's one. Or like if you spin it a funny way and it wraps the Sea-Doo, flips the Sea-Doo over, that's your power source. You're falling from 60 feet you're landing, there's broken ribs on Sea-Doo. So there was different elements. So you totally had to be in flow for sure to learn those things like the back of your hand. And then there was times, of course, you get out of your run and you're like, I pulled that off. I did do that. And you'd have to watch the video to remind yourself that, like, yeah, you just got in a cool state. But
yeah, that's cool, man. I'm always fascinated with that. And like myself, like that's where I flow is just interesting. Like I've chatted a lot about it on this podcast, had a whole bunch of people, experts on who talked about flow, and like, yeah, there's all these different, it's almost like a high that you get into, like runner's high is one of them. Like I used to get that. I feel like it wears away sometimes, or maybe it's just you get too creative and out of your flow, you try to start experimenting, and then that can lead to maybe more resistance or possible injury in your case. Not following the book or following at least what is good for you in the moment.
Yeah. And as humans, we overcomplicate things always, right? So
there you go.
Totally trying to push it a little bit further. Sometimes it's not needed. You stay in that flow, and was exactly as it should have been.
So, I know you've been doing sales for a while, and like Trevor. So now folks probably have heard of Trevor Turnbull. He's been on the podcast 3 times now, I think it is.
Yeah.
And so like, there was some bromance, obviously. You guys lived by each other, but like, how did that all happen? Because you guys are creating some cool stuff now that I feel like is timely for a lot of men, and totally soon too.
Yeah. That, honestly, it was 2 guys in the neighborhood that we truly, when we look back at it, and we believe we manifested one another, right? We were both looking for a different relationship in our lives that was in the form of another man, and creating more in our lives and challenging each other. And so we started with the typical head nods and, saying what's up as he passed my house, because our mailbox is right in front of my house. So he'd come with his 2 boys, and it's like, oh, he's got 2 young kids. I don't know anybody in the neighborhood. So there'd be a bit of a conscious effort there, but that happened 4 or 5 times. And then finally it was, we should go play a game of tennis. And then we did that. And then while we're playing tennis, he talks about how he's moved his family to Costa Rica. He's an online marketer. And my bells were going off. Okay, this guy's up to some stuff that interests me and that I can really relate to. I wanted to move my family somewhere like that. I want to learn how to just exist online and be able to travel and live from wherever I can. So we got into these deeper conversations. And then it was, challenges with our kids and relationships with our wives. And once we crossed that border of getting into those type of conversations, it just got more real, right? And we had a bros weekend away where I was like, Trev, do you think you can get away? We'll do some e-foil, we'll do some hiking. We actually stayed at a resort 20 minutes away. It's pretty funny, but
that change of environment a little bit to shift into that.
Yeah. And literally I was like, let's do some breath work on when we get to the top of the hike. This view's amazing. And we did that, and we came out of that, and literally the conversation is the one that's on our website, because Trev is Trev and he records everything. And I remember at the time being like, are you really recording this? Come on, we're having a good heart to heart. But it's amazing and it's beautiful. And I'm grateful for him and all that. He captures all that stuff. That's his genius. But we had that conversation on the mountaintop of saying, like, there's got to be more men out there like this that, have been caught in the grind. And that's what we both were. We've always been very successful in our corporate and sales and entrepreneurial lives, but we were both missing a heart component, truly. Being like, I was, it was my birthday or my wife's or kid's birthday or events, and I just wasn't feeling excitement. And I couldn't pinpoint why. I really couldn't. And I was probably picking up a drink too often, not to the point it affected my life, but that was the dangerous part. It was just casual, 1 or 2. And so when we started to get into these conversations of the tools that we were both playing with, and breath work and cold exposure and, things like that, eating better, working out, these foundational pieces, and challenging each other a little bit, we started to feel the difference in what we're creating. And again, it was, who else is out there that's looking for this? We should do a retreat. And that's, what spawned the first one, with absolutely zero experience between the 2 of us, saying, let's go for it and see what happens. Yeah. Because our motto has always been with all of this work, you know what, we would do it even if nobody arrived, even if nobody showed up, we would be doing this work. And so if we can inspire a few people along the way, that's a beautiful thing. That's a win.
Yeah. And that video you mentioned of you guys on the mountain, I watched it, and I didn't think it was planned. It didn't look planned, but it was genuine, which is the best part of it, And so over at extremelyconscious.com, definitely go check it out. And you can see, I mean, there's a lot of videos actually. That site looks pretty sweet. So like it gives a good explanation too of your vision. And I mean, you guys have done a lot. And the fact that that was your first event, you guys like produced the hell out of it. Like it looks great. Obviously, you guys have a lot of background in marketing and putting stuff together and making things actually sell and look great. But at the same time, that's for a purpose that I know I've noticed in myself. Yeah, I think I even put this in the chat last night, is like the last few years for me definitely were a lot of like have tos. It feels like a lot of stressors, a lot of different things happening. And really wasn't until the last handful of months. And then in the group that we're in now that you put together, it feels a lot more in flow all the time and less have tos. Like it's more present and being open and honestly just genuine with myself first, not feeling like everything's a have to or it's a push. You know, you can't really push flow anyway. That was kind of like one of my things. I'm like, oh yeah, duh, can't control that shit.
Totally. That's exactly it. We all have, you know, so much going on. And I love that you bring that up because there's so many guys in the group as well that have logical minds, right? But a lot of the words that we use are beyond logic. You know, you need to have faith, to surrendering to the universe, right? But these are things that we see are very real once we actually learn to embrace them and we're leaning into the process. Because as you say, right, I'm the same. Like, I don't get stressed anymore. I have probably more going on in my life than I've ever had in my entire life. And I'm able to accomplish more because of another concept we talk about, expanding time, right? And that's really allowing ourselves to be in flow when we're doing a certain thing. But at the same time, we're not stressing about all these have tos. And in turn, we're very, very present when it comes to time with our kids still and time with our partners. And we're not perfect. You know, we hear in the chat, everybody has their off days and that's normal. And if we didn't, heck, life would be boring, wouldn't it?
Probably not human. You're some kind of alien like Elon or something.
Yeah, I wish I had his mind.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good one.
Well, yeah,
never sleep.
Touche. That's be careful what you wish for, I think.
Right. Yeah, but you're right, man. I mean, that's where it's the emotional. I don't know if it's even it's like the conscious side. Well, I'll just say this, like I'm reading a book right now based off of Nico in our group called Driven. And I haven't mentioned this on the podcast. I actually don't even know the author's name, but it's called Driven. I think it's a red cover. I'll link it in the show notes. Yeah. Absolutely phenomenal. It's blowing my mind. I don't think it's made for everyone, but it's definitely, I think it's for most entrepreneurs and people who are seeking a better situation in general for themselves and others. And there's just some aha moments where it's just describes like how I feel internally in times when I'm pushing or stacking too much on my plate, expecting too much of myself or others. And I felt like, because it describes a lot of the non-logical stuff that we can describe. Like you can't really describe a lot of it, but I feel like it actually puts it really well in words, at least for the personality type of a lot of us, I would say, that are here on this podcast and listening.
Yeah, I just ordered that actually as well. I think it's Michael Brackenmore.
That sounds right. Yeah. All the way from meditations, but it's slightly different approaches than what we would like. I was doing stuff a little slightly off, whereas rather like, you know, meditate with your eyes closed. And I was like more like, no, meditate with your eyes open and focus on something and like feel your anxiety and your twitchiness or whatever, your drive to go like look around, but like be calm in the chaos, quote unquote chaos. But for a lot of us, we want to keep doing something to progress. And usually that's not the case. So it's like, chill that thing consciously, whatever that foundation is.
Oh, you nailed it, right? The entrepreneurial brain is that we want to always be doing something. We want to constantly be on to the next thing. And we want to see results right away. Of course, it's learning meditation and to slow down was one of the hardest things I ever did, of having, you know, that however many years in sales in the journey, saying, no, we got to do more to produce more to, you know, X equals Y. Like there's only one equation versus it's not true. You know, we become so much more, we can produce so quality over quantity when we slow down. And, that lack of focus that we actually have when we're jumping from one thing to the next, we dilute that quality that we're bringing to anything instead of slowing down and focusing and spending the proper time and then moving to the next thing. But meditation is not easy. No. And, the biggest thing is people try to define it and put it, if I don't sit there and get quiet right away, then I'm not doing it right. And then we judge ourselves. And then you go down that rabbit hole. It's like, no, it's a practice, just like going to the gym and flexing.
Yeah.
You're not jacked in 3 times going to the gym. You're not going to have silence and sitting down 3 times. Like, keep doing it, keep showing up. And that's journaling. That's anything we do, right? There's a reason they're called practices.
Yeah, man. And that's where the book was saying, and I would agree with this, is like with meditation, it's like you start, and it goes with anything, journaling too, but it's almost like the anxiety or this pressure rises even more because it's like awareness is coming up. You're like, oh yeah, I do have all these crazy thoughts around, or my body is twitchy because I'm uncomfortable just sitting in one place for 2 minutes, even looking at something, or with my eyes closed, whatever, play with it all. But yeah, that's where I think a lot of people bail out. Same with breath work too. I mean, it's all meditative.
Big time, right? It's all the resistance that comes up at any of those stages. And it's like, as you say, and allow those things to come into your space, observe them, and then they'll move on. But when we create that stress around them, then it's the immediate judgment. And breathwork, is no different. It is awkward as hell. And there's a reason it's called breath work, is because it is work. I've been doing that now for a year and a bit, and it still is. If I want to sit down and do 3 rounds of breath, it doesn't come naturally. We can translate that to getting in the cold. I'm sure you can relate, right? As much as we love the result every time after we get out, getting into it or being in it is never easy.
Dude, it's been a practice. I already did mine today, cold shower. It's been colder in San Diego, so luckily the water piping in is colder, but like during the summer, I'm going to feel like I'm cheating here. It's just not as cold, but dude, that's like, I want to chat about a couple things with you because breathwork, you facilitate some awesome sessions and feels like you've been doing it for a very long time. The way that you move through the sessions and just activates a different, because I do a lot of breath work. I've done a lot of Wim Hof stuff. I did that this morning as well. It's usually, that's my hack, to like do Wim Hof and then jump into the shower.
Yes.
And I've done that with plunges too. It just makes it easier, but I feel like the effect is better mentally and physically as well. But cold, I'll just say this really fast. And I noticed that if like in a cold shower, for instance, breath work before helps. And I'm curious of your perspective and process here, but also in the shower, what I've been experimenting with is with my eyes open, not closed, and like, and this goes back to that book where it's like, hold on, be aware of like where you're at and actually what you're doing. And like, except I'm in a cold shower right now. It's cold as shit.
Yes.
I don't want to necessarily be in this thing, but I'm going to do it, and I'm safe, and I'm actually freaking loving it because like now, a month and a half in, it's just an automatic. Every day I'm going to pop on at the end of the shower.
Yes.
2 minutes of
Oh man, it's I literally have a conversation with myself now. I can't have a regular shower. It doesn't happen because every time, and I'm sure you do the exact same thing, you get to that point, I'm like, I go through a conversation in my head and I'm like, am I going to have a good day or a great day? And I know the answer. What do you want to have? And if I turn that dial, I know I'm awake, and away we go. But I love that you brought one piece up there, is just like being in it, right? Because I brought this is one thing I actually challenged Trev on when I first introduced him to the cold dipping. He's like, I always plug my tunes in and I always do this. And I said, okay, well, here's what I want you to try, Trev, is turn the music off and sit in it. Just as you say, keep your eyes open and be in it. And it's like, that relates to so many things we do in our lives, right? People are working out at the gym. This one drives me nuts. Pet peeve alert here. But, sitting there on their phones, when your benefits there are so minimized when you're not actually present to what you're doing versus thinking about what muscles you're working and you're moving. That goes to eating food. If you don't have a connection with your food and you're sitting there just lost in even a book or on your phone again, your body's not digesting the food as well.
True.
It's not taking in the nutrients as well. It's where you just get lost in this move world of how can we just, even in the great things, the good things that are very good for us, how can we just distract ourselves from what we're doing that's good for us, right? And or multitasking. And so I love that you bring that up, because it's such a good reminder for us in all the little things that we do to be there, and how valuable that is. It's presence, in whatever we're doing.
I feel like there's something going on in us as well. Maybe it's a subconscious, like the book calls it, and I keep referencing this book. It's so hot in my mind, Driven. But it's like we have this elephant, basically, that's like the unconscious thing that just keeps us moving. It's like when we're driving unconsciously, something's in control. Yeah. So there is this unconscious element, but it also controls, or it affects, like the monkey minds. And it says there's an emotional monkey and a logical monkey. And basically they're all kind of playing together, but the elephant's really in control. But once you tame or maybe bring consciousness to that elephant through this kind of stuff we're talking about and being aware, then that like fight or flight just kind of, it goes away, because there's no threat. We are safe, and that's what we want. And yeah, it's exposure to cold and breath work, I feel like, are some of the best tools for it. And you're crushing it, man. I want to chat more about it, like your perspective of, I guess, maybe breath work, and because I want to hear more of like your process and maybe some things people can try here. Totally.
And I'll tell you, I'll rewind a little bit. So breathwork came into my life, a friend of mine's program that I was introduced to, and he'll be a facilitator at our retreat, actually. Cool. Ken McDougall coming up. He's such a powerful human. And so I did his program. I learned about breathwork, just introductory, and it just made me feel, I've had a crazy party life in the university days, and I've done many things like other people have, but I was higher in that breathwork than I've ever been in anything else. And not in an addictive, like party way, in a beautiful spiritual way, when I did his first transformational breathwork experience. And it was from that moment that I really felt something, and it started to bounce me back to feeling again for these regular events in my life. Fast forward a few months, I had some things going wrong, some health issues. I was actually bit by a tick. I have Lyme disease, and I'll go through it quick, but I lost 50 pounds, did the antibiotic route. I was frail. I was just not in a great place, went in a dark place because I couldn't even lift up my kids without being in pain. I was crying through the night trying to sleep, and just felt very powerless. And it wasn't until I started to dive further on the spiritual stuff, playing with breath work, that I really started to heal. I can heal myself. I said, I have to take this into my own hands. Antibiotics are just ripping my body apart, and it was not the path. And that's when the breath really became special for me. And I realized the power in it, and the healing power that we as humans have for ourselves when we choose these tools between our mind and our breath. And so that's when I knew I wanted to devote big piece of my path to it. And that's, it's from any, before I got on with you, I did a round of breath because I was just like the chaos of the morning. My boy ran back in here 5 minutes before saying, Daddy, I don't want to go to school today. And I said, oh, bud, you got to get to the truck. You got to, right? One dog scratching at the door 2 minutes after that, all of that. So the breath is so powerful in, resetting our nervous system, calming us down, in getting us focused, in charging us up for things, in healing trauma, in paired with visualization, manifesting success and performance in athletics. And that's why it fires me up, as I love the healing aspect and helping people heal from trauma, but I also love the performance piece of helping people visualize and really see what they're capable of, and then bringing it to life. But it's seeing those things and feeling it before you even do it. And so that's what fires me up about it. And some simple ones that people can get started on. I always find the easiest, if you're not familiar with it, is simply called box breathing. So if you envision a square, essentially, it's just 4 seconds of a breath in, and then a 4-second hold across, and then a 4-second release, and then a 4-second hold on the bottom, and back into your breathe in. So that's one of the simplest ones to start playing with the breath. Again, it's bringing presence into our daily lives, right? If we have a busy day and we're in it, we're in call to call, Zoom call to Zoom call, email, to step outside and do that for 4 minutes is intentionally, right? Is bringing presence back into your day. And I guarantee you'll go back into your next meeting zoned in.
True.
Right?
Yeah, man.
So that's the magic of breath. It's just when you choose to breathe intentionally, you remind yourself a few times a day, It can really, truly elevate your life. I could go on and on about chronic illness and mental illness and all of those things and the beauty of anxiety and helping those pieces. But, so it's from anybody just looking to get presence to people that are really looking for help. Mm-hmm. It's a tool that we all have for free.
That's I love Wim Hof's. He has a shirt, but his quote, and sorry for all y'all that don't like cussing. I know I already said it earlier, but my favorite saying of Wim Hof is breathe, motherfucker. We all have it. And if you're ever feeling stress, anxiety, whatever, just need to charge up, because a lot of this, like meditation, it could be to chill out. But at the same time, it's almost like breath helps you chill, because like Wim, for instance, his wife killed herself. Like that was the whole thing that got him on this trek of breath work and cold exposure. So he obviously had to chill out the demons and the chaos in his life, as I've done with my dad. My dad also killed himself and talked about that on this podcast. I'll talk about it more, but it's like these techniques I've used, and it's like a chill the nervous system, and then it's also a ramp it up to be focused. And it's not like you go crazy everywhere in chaos, but it's actually like this, almost like you focus all that energy in. And there's no better tool.
No, we all have the primal beings inside of us, right? The fight or flight, the constant movement. So it really allows us to calm the fight, and there's still an energetic aspect to it, but we're focused. And so it's such a beautiful tool and practice.
Well, I want to shout out before we get to the cold exposure, because I'm very curious. You have way more experience in that than I do. And most people will just have this kind of stigma, maybe with cold, or just freaked out. But for the breath work, I know at extremelyconscious.com, I'll just shout out, like, go to that site, because there's free breath work at the top. It just says, just breathe. And the experience. So you mentioned the retreat, and I'm going to be there. I've talked about that in some other episodes. And I'm sure there's a little blurb shout out, but definitely go check it out. The experience page in Costa Rica, because that's kind of like all this stuff is lumped up into that 5-day event. So if you're a man and curious, go click that, go check it out.
It's going to be an incredibly powerful 5 days. Yeah. We've got some amazing facilitators, including the one I just spoke to. And then Trev and I will be co-facilitating. And then we have some amazing humans that are going to be there already that have stepped forward.
Yeah, I'm stoked, man. I'm freaked out in a lot of ways, because there's like jumping off of big waterfalls, and I haven't done that stuff, but I love it. I want to.
All the beautiful things you'd expect, like some cool excursions, jumping off of waterfalls, facing fears, surfing, really getting into nature. But then there's deep stuff. The work that we do is, it's men that are ready to be accountable for where they're at in their lives and where they want to go. And that takes looking at ourselves, and that takes being vulnerable and having conversations with other men, which a lot of the time are strangers, right? But that's the beauty of what we create. And it's not just about the 5 days. It's about the integration afterwards. And truly, for those of us that have already been doing the work beforehand, we've got this peak experience, but then we're going to integrate for a month all together virtually afterwards as well. So it truly is going to be a transformational experience for everybody involved. And so I'm pumped. Trev and I talk a couple hours a day on it.
Yeah, I know. And the fact that you pulled off some great stuff in the first one without that event ever happening before. And now this is round 2 in Costa Rica. Yeah, extremelyconscious.com/experience will get you there to that page. Mike, I want to talk about the cold now. And because this is the thing that most people, they're like, all right, I can do breath work. I can do that stuff. I can meditate, but I don't want to get in a cold, plunge, not even a cold shower. But yeah. Walk us through, what the hell is it? What's your process? And
the cold is, again, such a powerful tool that we all have at our disposal, whether it's a simple shower or whether it's, like I did, is I went to the feed store and bought a $150 horse trough and said, no, I want to commit to this. And I remember my first plunge. So I had read a book. It's called What Doesn't Kill You. And so it's about putting our bodies intentionally through stressors, for the stress response. And when we do that intentionally, how beneficial it is for us, taking us to the brink of, the danger zone with temperatures and everything, and how it's great for us. And then Wim was a big piece of that. So when I first got my trough, I was like, okay, I want to do this. This seems good. But I was getting back into working out. So it was, we've always heard of athletes in recovery and stuff too. But I'll tell you real quick, because it was funny. It had to have been, I remember we had roofers on our roof. Yeah, it must have been March because there was still snow in the backyard. Mm-hmm. And so I filled the tub up, chucked a bunch of snow in it too. And the tap was freezing. The hose was freezing. And I remember plugging headphones in, and these roofers were here. I'm like, I got to do it anyways. I'm going to keep making excuses if I don't do it. And I plugged in headphones. It was freezing cold. I jumped in, and I was actually in there for 8 minutes.
Dang.
8, which I don't even do today. Yeah. So but I got in this almost like a meditative zone too. And I got out and I was feeling incredible. And it was, for me, literally, it was a point of no return. It was just a light bulb that I was like, this is amazing. And then of course I wanted to learn more. So I started doing it more often. And doing some research on it to learn the science behind it. And it's just been a tool ever since. I do it every single day now for, I don't know how long. I'm sure there's a couple gaps in there when I'm really tired and telling myself some story that I shouldn't do it. But it's a reset, it completely resets our nervous system. So anytime I'm even midday feeling stressed, I'll be like, I know the one tool I got to do. 2 tools, breath and cold, that will always fix me up, or at least get me in a zone that I can make sense of myself. But for me, on a regular basis, it's either in the morning or it's in the evening. And it's just, about 2 minutes, 2 to 4 minutes. I go in and get in the zone, and I don't use music. Once in a while, it's nice, but otherwise it's just facing that discomfort. And how I always refer to it if I do it in the morning, it's kind of like, this is going to be the hardest thing I do all day, and it's funny. Once you consistently get into discomfort, it makes other things in your life easier. It does. When we intentionally choose to put ourselves out of our comfort zone, right? When we face these other tough things, I'm like, I've been in 1 degree water this morning. That was terrible. I can do this, and it builds that resiliency as well of the strength of the mind beyond all the physiological effects that it actually does do to your body. When you let your body warm up naturally, it also builds what in our body, which is called brown fat, which is really, really great. It helps. I mean, if you're looking at weight loss, it helps weight loss because your body's constantly trying to warm itself up for hours later. And then there's an energy gain. That's amazing. Like if you do it in the morning, you're on fire. You just be conscious of it at the time, but hours into your day and you'll be like, whoa, I'm still buzzing from that. I feel pretty good. And so any which way you look at it, it's beneficial. And then there's those with anxiety and facing that piece. It's just like, it helps create presence. Initially, there's that fight or flight again. You get in there, the first couple times, right? And every time I turn that tap now, if it's a shower, it's that shallow breath. But again, you go to tying these things in and control the breath and you win, right? It's just get to those deep breaths. Know that, once you get through, there's always different thresholds in the cold. Or walls, right? And the first one is always that fight or flight. First 30 seconds of I need to get the fuck out of here. And then it's the next at whatever time that is for you. But it kicks in. It's like, okay, I'm good. I should get out. But you get through that and it gets longer. And it's just, so it's a game you can really start to play with yourself. It's just magical once you get into it.
I like that you say that. Yeah, it is phases. And I've never, I think about it in the moment, because now I'm being very, very aware of these things because it's just repetition, now 45 some odd days into doing a daily cold shower, like I've never been consistent like that ever. The breath I have been more, not this consistent, but, and I'll break down the micro habit, all these little micro things in that solo episode. So go back and check that out and you'll know what I'm talking about here in terms of the daily habits.
Yes.
But that's what I remember is right initially, and now it's getting easier, but the breath is usually the first thing to go. And that's the case whenever we're anxious, whenever we're nervous, speaking. Could be for folks doing podcasts or I've been recording, one of my clients is a fertility clinic and interviewing doctors and getting them on camera. And I'm noticing how foreign it is to just put a camera in someone's face and speak normally.
Totally.
But the breath, and that's actually part of the coaching is all right, let's just all breathe here really quick. And the box breathing technique will just, that could bring it back to center. And I feel like in the cold, it's the extreme, all that heightened. And if you can control your breath and your mind in the cold,
Yes.
Think about everything else, man. You're kind of unstoppable.
It is. That's what's so neat. It's that transferable tool, right? You refer back to it. You can control in that hyper state. Then you learn to leverage the breath in, as you say, your daily practice, for those that are speakers before they go on stage, or before you sit down and record a podcast, or before I've actually on my podcast, I do it with every guest at the beginning now. We take 3 breaths together.
That's cool.
To arrive, because we know everybody has, busy lives and days. And when we sit down for chats, it's trying to make sure we're really here.
Yeah, that's a good call, man. Let's wrap this puppy up, and maybe we wrap it up with some breaths so we can leave people with.
Oh, I love it.
Kind of seal everything in, and let's mention the retreat and so check out extremelyconscious.com, and to get to the retreat, it's extremelyconscious.com/experience.
Yes.
I'll tell you everything there.
It's coming up April 24th to the 28th. And I know we shared some of the things, but it's everything for peak experiences. We've got a Red Seal chef doing all the meals, who is also an amazing man that'll be joining all the experiences. So a lot of our facilitators are taking part as well. They're bringing their gifts, which makes it so powerful. But we do have 12 spots left. So, if this all resonates with you, reach out with questions, jump on the site, reach out to us. We're always up for a call or any questions.
Right on, man. And you'll be doing some future ones if the timing doesn't work out. I know one in Canada, and I'm sure further events.
Yes. Muskoka, Ontario coming in the fall. So that'll be a whole different ballgame.
Oh yeah. That'll be different than Costa Rica for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know either way. So I'm going to find out in Costa Rica to start. Cool, Mike. Well, anything else before we wrap it up with a few breaths, and all y'all listening can definitely join in and should.
No, appreciate it. It's such a pleasure to be on and share some of what we have going on. And we're on Instagram as well, at Extremely Conscious, or my personal is just at The Conscious Creator Coach. And we're always sharing a bunch of fun stuff on there. But yeah, let's get centered together. Let's just do 10 conscious breath with a nice hold at the end, because I know we don't have a ton of time, but that'll be good. So we're just going to go in through the nose and out through the mouth. And if you are not driving and you're sitting down, let's close down our eyes and just settle in our chairs for a moment. And as we breathe in a few seconds here, I want you to visualize the breath coming in through your nose, going into your lungs, and then expelling out. We breathe in beautiful oxygen. We breathe out carbon dioxide. So we're going to breathe in 3, 2, 1. Nice big breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. Do no pause at the bottom, no pause at the top. You more here. On the next exhale, let's just hold for even 10 seconds. Beautiful. Blow the rest of the air out. One more big inhale to an exhale.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, brother. This was such a pleasure to be a part of, and appreciate you. Love you tons. And it's awesome to be on here, man.
Appreciate you, brother. Much love as well. And I'm happy for you to show up. I'm feeling like, see that little reset right there. I'm like, boom.
Totally. A little bit of zen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Appreciate you, Mike. And thank you everyone for listening and trying that out with us. We'll see you next time.
Yes. Cheers, guys.
All right. That's what I got for you today. And remember, it's not all about living to work. It's all about working to live, if you need to do the work. But work can be fun, and it should be fueling for your life. So if you enjoyed what you just heard, if you got some nuggets of wisdom that you want to share, or you're just noodling on right now, please go tell others. The way that people find this show and how you can help others get their aha moments is through word of mouth. So if it is telling your friend, telling your family, sending an email to your list, writing a review, or whatever it might be, everything helps. So thank you so much for listening to the Hustle and Flowchart podcast, and I will see you next time.